If you don't know, Hollywood has a very, very severe obsession with race and gender. I think all of us understand that pretty clearly by now. But one of the things that we've talked about a lot over the last couple of years is this thing that they do at the end of the year. It's this group called the USC Annenberg Inclusion Initiative, where they basically give Hollywood a report card on how racist and sexist they are. And what they do inevitably every year is they say, blah, 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 this change, this change, this change. There's still so much work to be done. You're all evil people, right? Well, they have come out this year, and this is what the new study finds. It says major studios pledged to hire more female filmmakers and people of color were performative. So they did.
You don't say.
You don't say.
Well,
right?
this, if you are by trade a DEI executive, and this is what you do for a living, is you tabulate the number of disabled people, the number of gay people, the number of people of color or women in a certain movie or TV show. You exist to propagate the necessity for you to exist. So you actually, as a DEI executive, don't want diversity, equity, and inclusion to ever be realized, because that would mean you don't get a paycheck anymore. You would, I mean, you're not necessary in the first place, but even just the pretense for your existence, for your job, would be eliminated if we ever reached this utopia of diversity and inclusion that you want.
Do they even have a goal? Is there like a clear goal?
The goal is just to complain.
It's the Kanye and Kobe Bryant thing where he's like, how much more do you want? More. He's like, but are you a different animal? But the same beast? He goes, what the does that even mean, Kobe Bryant? It says, despite the box office success of Greta Gerwig's Barbie and Elizabeth Banks' Cocaine Bear, flag on the play, she doesn't get a pass because Charlie's Angels was such a bomb that this success, and I did love that movie, does not negate the fact that the movie before that was garbage. So the problem here is like these movies just happened. They can't make the changes yet. Like give them some time. So it says the female directors are not getting the same opportunities in Hollywood as their male counterparts. At the same time, major studios which pledged to re-examine their employment practices in the wake of the George Floyd murder failed to produce many films from people of color. I fail to understand what the death of someone of a black man in Minnesota has to do with making movies, but what do I know? What's funny about this is like we have this argument. I did this video recently where I made this point where I said Hollywood is business minded, and it was wrong on the face, because I do believe that Hollywood, when they look at these things, I do believe that they hire the people that they want because it's good for their stock price because of DEI and all of these things that are done through stakeholder capitalism, the way things are done that way. But they don't seem to be box office focused, right? But if they are as truly ideologically focused as they seem to be, why is it that they keep hiring white male directors when they could be just as much of a virtue signal behind the camera as they are in front of the camera?
Well, if we look at the highest grossing films of 2023, the majority of them are directed, and I would assume written as well, by white straight males, right?
But the thing is people keep saying they don't care about money anymore. All that matters is the message. If the message was all that truly mattered, then they would just not be hiring any white dudes anymore. Or is it simply the fact that there's more to it than just the race and the skin color? Who you know in the industry matters. Your connections matter. Your legacy matters, as much as they want to pretend that it doesn't. And also between women and men, it's a matter of career choice. Like there are just less women that choose to go into these professions than there are men.
I think that's true for the white male directors that have a legacy, like the Steven Spielbergs, the Christopher Nolans.
But even think of like a James Gunn.
There's a closed door to any new director or filmmaker who wants to enter the industry and have a project. There's an open door for anyone who fits into a minority group.
Who is the youngest director, like white male director, like James Gunn, like the youngest, like continually successful white male
Maybe it's
director.
just the gray hair, but isn't he?
I mean, but he's younger than Steven Spielberg though by a couple of decades.
Is he in his 50s or his 60s?
He's probably in his 50s, right? So like what? You've got like a Sam Raimi, he's probably in his 50s. You've got these directors, but like younger than that, you've got Matt Reeves is successful. They are there, and the studios do. So I guess maybe just the message in front of the movie. I literally was like, so is the argument here that we want to push the message, but to push the message successfully, we have to hire white men to do it, which would be extremely ironic.
The female directors also have a responsibility, if they want equal opportunity, to make movies that aren't just about women and women issues.
Yes, well, and that's the thing. White men
Greta Gerwig making Barbie, it's a feminism movie. She also made Little Women. She also made Lady Bird. There's, other things like the Woman King, women talking. Why is everything about women? Just make a normal movie, and you'll get praised for your skill in directing a movie, and not about your ability to push a message.
Elizabeth Banks made Cocaine Bear, which is successful. Yeah. Charlie's Angels flopped. Because Cocaine Bear was fun and had nothing to do with women.
Yeah.
Right? The other thing that's funny about this is like when you really think about it, like do they really just need the white dudes to be the ones that push this message because they seem to be the only ones who know how to do it successfully to the masses. Also, when a white dude is hired to make a movie, he's not making, they can hire him to do anything other than making a movie about a white dude, because there's no actual movies about just that topic, right? A movie about women is a movie about women. I guess you could you could say he's making a movie about men. Fine, but
there's baggage with other.
Christopher Priest is a comic book writer who used to get all of these jobs writing all sorts of characters. He wrote Daredevil, he wrote all these Punisher, all these characters. But then when the industry turned and they started hiring less for merit and more for identity, here is this really talented comic book writer who's being told, we have to have you write Black Panther. It's like, I don't want to write Black Panther. Like, I want to write something that requires me to do research, to actually, it's not about my lived experience, about if I'm doing my job as a writer, then I can write about anything. Right? So, and even Greta Gerwig didn't write Barbie wholly by herself. Her husband helped write the movie with her. It's also funny because they make a point of saying that 4.5% of directors of the top 100 movies in 2018, it was 4.5% were women. And in 2023, 12.1% were women. And they listed that as not a substantial growth when that's more than double. Like, did you want it to just jump from like 4 to 50 in like
instantly
4 years?
Yeah.
That's never going to happen.
I also think that to be a director, you need to have like tyrannical, authoritarian personality traits.
Kino Corner talked about this when he was here.
That comes naturally to men and not women.
Yeah.
So surprise, surprise, men and women are different. This is like the fundamental truth that is, being rejected, and the rejection of that truth is destroying society, and it's destroying our cultural output.
Olivia Wilde, when she was talking about making Don't Worry Darling, she directed Don't Worry Darling, said, oh, it was so collaborative. And it was so like, it's like, it wasn't like I was just the only one in charge. I'm like, that's not going to like,
and that's not the goal.
No, it's not like if you're trying to promote, the reason a Christopher Nolan movie works is because a man with a singular vision is putting that vision together and, in a lot of ways, tyrannically making sure that it comes out exactly as it needs to come out. Certainly when it fails, but when it works really well, it works really well. But the problem is everything at these studios now is done by committee. 30,000 writers, 10 different departments who are telling you whether it's socially acceptable to make it this way. And you've watered down your art because you're judging, you're directing, you're writing, and you're making these things based on the idea that 10,000 people can come up with a better vision than one singular artistic person, which isn't true.
Who was the chick that directed the Marvels?
Nia DaCosta.
Nia DaCosta. They made this big to-do about, we found a black woman to direct a Marvel movie. Aren't we so great? Pat us on the back. But then when you actually read her interviews, you see that she didn't know what was going on most of the time. And they were like, just trust the process. We'll deal with it later.
Well, they did the same thing
the movie bombed.
And the movie bombed.
They did the same thing with the lady who directed or who helped direct the Black Widow, where she's like, well, I want to do the fight scenes. They're like, we'll take care of that.
Right. They don't actually afford the Marvel directors a lot of individual power, which is, I would assume, is one of the factors in why they're turning out so shitty.
Maybe women don't want to direct movies.
Oh, yeah, by the way.
Yeah, maybe we should consider what women want.
Season 2 for Rings of Power, all-female directing team. I think they just committed to the bit. They're like, look, everybody hates this crap anyways. Let's just make it worse.
Let's just go as hard as possible.
Given that I'm not like a huge Lord of the Rings buff, I can actually appreciate like the willing to, like, if we're gonna bring this ship down, we're gonna bring it down tremendously.
Blocked Peter Jackson's number and told him to F off.
So they found that of 116 directors that were attached to 100 top grossing films in 2023, 14% were 14 of them were women. 9% of top grossing films were directed by women in 2022, but that report argues that the percentage of them in 2022 was lower because they had not changed, because they hadn't put the new ideas into process yet. They hadn't started working on all of these new initiatives until after that started, right? So it says Universal hired 4 female directors, a high among distributors. That was followed by Lionsgate and Disney. Hey, Universal was the #1 studio this year, so maybe they've got an argument there, though I don't think they directed the movies that did really, really well, but you can make that argument there. Across the last 17 years, a total of 27 women, 9.2%, have been hired by Universal Pictures to direct a major theatrical release. That was followed by Warner Brothers at 6%, Sony at 6%, Walt Disney at just 6% as well. So that's not very progressive of Disney, given all that they seem to be pushing right these days.
They're getting sued right now for discrimination against all of their female employees.
It's okay. This was the other one. So it says they also found that 26 directors, 22% of the top 100 grossing movies in 2023 were from underrepresented racial and ethnic groups. 14 of them were Asian, which came to 53%. 8 are black, which came to 30%. 2 are Hispanic, 7%, and 2 other filmmakers are multiracial, multi-ethnic. And first of all, it's just. It's like, have you seen what's going on with Claudine Gay? The president of Harvard, she resigned, and people are arguing about it on the internet, extensively about, first of all, whether she should have resigned at all. I don't remember who it was that was saying the next person who takes over Harvard must be a black woman. I think Ibram X. Kendi might have been the one who said that.
Was she a black woman?
She was a black woman, right? So, and then in the same breath, somebody else was like, when people said that, it was either Ibram X. Kendi or Mark Lamont Hill or whoever it was. And then people were like, oh yeah, Candace Owens would be great. Oh yeah, Carol Swain would be great, because Carol Swain is the one who Claudine Gay.
They're like, no, not like that.
No, and he goes, these people are acting like black people are all a monolith, and they're like, you literally just said that the only qualification they need to have is to be a black woman. Right? Which is not a recipe for sincerity. And that's the #1 thing to take away from this, is that when you put demands on people based on these types of ideas, it's not a recipe for sincerity. It's not a recipe for honest change. Look, maybe this year, with Greta Gerwig directing the biggest movie of the year, and the woman who directed FNAF, Five Nights at Freddy's, also being a woman, maybe you'll start to see some change for those actors. But it can't be done based on just the fact that they're women. The fact that their sex organs don't dangle has nothing to do with whether they're good at their job or not. And some of these women have to start speaking up for the idea of actually putting merit.
Brett, some people would say that whether or not their sex organs dangle has nothing to do with whether they're women.
That's a good point. I didn't even think about it. I mean, that's how they could fix all this. It's just how, like, Steven Spielberg just comes to Stephanie Spielberg, and we just go on.
Well, the Wachowski sisters.
Yes. There's a fantastic example, right? Is actually talented directors. Look, the V for Vendetta is one of my favorite movies of all time, right? I think that they were still the Wachowski siblings at the time.
I think one was a sister and one was a brother.
And it's none of this is a recipe for actual sincerity, because a business can't be sincere. At least I don't really believe that businesses have the ability to be inherently sincere, because at a certain point I have to wonder, are we right and they're inherently completely ideological, as so many have said, or do they secretly actually want these things to do good and they just don't know how to do it right without at least halfway virtue signaling?
If they could have it their way, they'd have their cake and eat it too, but that's not possible.
They don't even know what they want their way to be.
Also, they don't
know what it is.
They're never willing to do it with, like, sure, Marvel is a crap factory with garbage that they can just shovel out to you and people will just take it, right? So they can hire whoever they want. Fine.
You can slap the name of a black female director on whatever.
They're never going to do that with Dune.
Yeah.
They're not. They're going to give Denis Villeneuve the movie, because Denis Villeneuve has a long history of successful projects.
They actually care about the outcome.
Yes. They're not going to do it with this. Like, Oppenheimer was never getting made by Nia DaCosta. ever in a million years. And that is not because Universal was racist. It's because they wanted the movie to make money, and Christopher Nolan has a reputation and can actually deliver on what he's doing. There are female directors. Like, television is a space where there's plenty of actually talented female directors. Like, if you go watch the average television show and you watch a show that was successful in the early 2000s, or like, you're not gonna get a lot of them, but you're gonna see a hell of a lot more female directors than you were at the big budget cinema level. Right? And that's because back then they succeeded based on the merit, the ability to do their job well and get rehired and get more work.
And I wonder if it's less time consuming to direct a TV show than a movie.
Well,
like, women are more, they have kids. They are kind of typically more the ones taking care of the kids.
Not actually,
and the family,
probably less so, because they're always working. Because
Well, I
you're
guess-
going from show to show, 2 to 3 episodes
Being a
year
TV
on
director
show.
is more of a job,
Yes.
right?
More stable.
But
If you're good at
I would
it.
say that this goes for feminism and its hypocrisy as a whole. When there was the feminist push to have women in the workplace, it was never about having women representation in blue collar jobs. It wasn't about them working at sewage plants or driving garbage trucks or
Construction
welding
jobs,
or whatever. It was never about that. It was about having women in white collar jobs that were cushy and had air conditioning. And the same thing goes for Hollywood, where they're not talking about equal representation for women who construct sets or actually or doing camera work or whatever like that. It's about the
non-glamorous.
female directors who really get the clout.
It's the CEO
Yep.
of that part of the job.
The ones who get to pal around with Margot Robbie
they do
and go
talk
to red
about
carpets.
They do talk about like the writers' rooms. We got to have so many women on the writing team. It would be interesting to see them try to employ something where, like, as a thought exercise, and it would work. It would be like a really funny way of like backing them into a corner. It's like, okay, here's the thing, guys. You can't write it like white men. You can't write about being white men. Women, you can't write about being white or black women. Whatever it is, and like. The white men, it won't change anything because there's no stories that are actually just written about being a white dude anyways. So it would force everyone to actually have to write about something other than what they're just self-inserting themselves into these stories anyways.
Well, you see, Greta Gerwig wrote Ken into Barbie, and the way that all of these feminists would write male characters is that everything comes to them easily and they're, what did you say, born on third base?
Yes. It was a quote about George Bush. Born on third base, thought he hit a triple.
I don't know. But you're right, Sarah. Like, women don't want to be directors.
I think that's just what it is.
If women wanted to be directors, there would be equal representation for women as film directors.
Especially if they were
That's
good
the
at
truth.
it. If they were good at it, Hollywood, this is kind of what I'm saying. It's the opposite version of like us saying like, we don't want to hate the movies. We want to like the movies, but they just happen to suck. If they were actually good, they want to hire female directors. If the women were making great movies and television shows, they would be more inclined to do it because it would work for all parties involved. It's not an inherent level of sexism, though I'm sure there is plenty of that from certain people at the studio level, right? A misogynist industry doesn't just change overnight. I'm sure there's plenty of that.
Is Hollywood misogynist anymore?
I'm sure plenty
In
of
2024 now?
I mean, if there's all these people R-wording women, then yes, I would say there's still plenty of misogyny.
I think
that's just
the world.
degeneracy.
I think that's just kind of how the world is at the end of the day.
Yeah, and if the women in Hollywood are just as willing to leverage their sexuality as the men are willing to leverage their power and resources to get sex, then it's just an all-out degeneracy problem in Hollywood, not a misogyny problem.
Woden Shot says, self-inserting yourself is redundant, Brett. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. None of these studies, and it's to Mary's point earlier, like, look, it's not ever going to be solved. It's never a problem that can ever be fixed. When I was looking at this stuff about Claudine Gay, plenty of the people were saying like nothing can be changed until everybody starts on absolutely the exact same footing. You have to all start from the same place. So that means nobody can come into the world with any more money than anyone else. Everyone has to live in the exact same socioeconomic situation. It's not possible.
It's
not
actually
feasible.
That's actually not the goal. Like, I guess the end goal is really that every white straight male has to live in a box
Yes.
and beg for change on the street and get like kicked. That's really the goal. It's not equal footing.
As long as these
It's the white men have to be completely ostracized from society.
But as long as these studios still need to at least make some of their money back, they're going to have to still keep hiring the white directors.
Yeah, but they're clearly not interested in making a profit anymore.
So it says the study authors note that there are drawbacks to measuring hiring in terms of box office receipts. Some films released towards the end of 2023 don't have enough time to gross enough money to be included in the list. Well, why didn't you make that same point as to why movies that just came out this year can't be representative of have to be representative of change that hasn't happened yet? Mm-hmm. You're defeating your own point. Those movies that they did well on might inspire them to greenlight more things with women, but they have to actually do that first. And there was just a writer's strike and an actor's strike, so there was a freeze put on greenlighting new projects. It's inherently dishonest, and I don't like it. It says, this report offers a contrast to those who might celebrate the dawning of the change of Hollywood. After a year in which Barbie topped the box office, the studio authors write, one film or one director are simply not enough to create the sea of change that is still needed behind the camera. Until studio executives and producers alter the way they make decisions about who is qualified and available to work as... You haven't even told me what the hell it means to be qualified. Mm-hmm. There isn't
your personal life experiences of being oppressed make you qualified to be a good storyteller, apparently.
Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.